Miss Jordan. I'm coming to y'all from my house again today. This is Zeke. He's enjoying our quarantine snuggles. I just wanted to tell you about something that maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, but so you know that's not true when you do. When I was a little girl, I used to go to Montana and Canada and the northern states, and up there they have something called bears. Of course, bears aren't something that you want to run into if you're out in the wild by yourself. But when I was little, I heard a rumor that if you're running from a bear, if you go downhill, you can get away from it because bears couldn't run downhill. Well, that is not true. That is actually false. Bears run just as fast downhill, uphill, across it. If you see a bear, good luck. But something that does run faster actually uphill than downhill is fire, oddly enough. Not like me. I'm slower uphill, faster downhill, because there's something called gravity and it works with me. Fire is actually something that we're going to talk about today in one of our stories. Did you know that here on planet Earth is the only place where fire can burn? Nowhere else in the whole known universe can fire be, well, fire, because there's not enough oxygen. Also, ironically, we don't know who invented the fire hydrant. Do you know why? Because oddly enough, the patent, which is the piece of paper that says who invents something, got destroyed in a fire in 1836. So the thing that we use to extinguish fires, we don't know who created it because of a fire. But it was a good invention for that reason too. Maybe they used it to put out the fire that destroyed the patent, I don't know. But today we're going to continue with our story of Elijah. If y'all don't remember from last week, Elijah was a prophet that God sent to confront the people that were not following after God. Now, Elijah was sent to confront a king called King Ahab. Ahab was a king that was very bad at the time. And so Elijah went to him and he told him that there was going to be a drought, which means no water on the land until Elijah said so. After that, God sent Elijah to the wilderness because, of course, a lot of people were going to be upset with him. He was fed by ravens, then God sent him and a widow took care of him, and then Elijah raised the widow's son from the dead. Well, now in the story, God has told Elijah to go and confront King Ahab again. Some things to know about King Ahab are, one, he was a worshiper of an idol. An idol means something that is not real, but that people worship like it is, that people give their time to, maybe they make sacrifices to. And the idol that he worshipped was called Baal. Now, Baal was supposed to be the god, I use this because he's not really a god, but he was supposed to be the god of rain. So he worshipped Baal, thinking that Baal was going to send rain on his crops and to help provide for the land. Now we know because there was a drought, the people that worship Baal couldn't have been thinking that he was doing a great job because there was no water, but they worshipped him anyways. And the people that worship Baal too grieved God's heart, meaning that they were very much against what God stood for, because one of the things that they would actually sacrifice to Baal was babies, newborn babies. So whenever we talk about the people that worship Baal, it was not a good practice at all. Now Elijah was the only prophet of God at the time, and he was going up against the prophets of Baal by himself. There was one Elijah and 450 prophets of Baal. So Elijah decided, let's make this interesting. He told all of the people to gather at a place called Mount Carmel. He told the prophets of Baal, he said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna set up 2 altars, and we're gonna make 2 different sacrifices to our gods. I'm gonna sacrifice to my God, and you're gonna sacrifice to Baal. Bring 2 calves, I'll let y'all pick first. You can pick out your calf, and then I'll pick whichever one's left. And then we're going to prepare them and put them on the altar. After we put them on the altar, we're going to both cry out to our gods, and whichever one sends fire to burn up the altar, or to burn up the sacrifice on the altar, is the one true God. That seems simple enough. So he even said, you know what, you guys outnumber me, I let you choose first, but I'm also going to let you go first. And so the prophets of Baal, they start calling out to their God. And because he's not real, he doesn't answer them. They cry out and they cry out and they dance around and they cut themselves until they're bleeding, thinking that he's gonna pay attention to them. But he doesn't. And then Elijah, being the savage that he is, comes up and he says, maybe your God is asleep. Or maybe your God is relieving himself. AKA, maybe your God is going to the bathroom and is not listening to you. As much as they wanted it to happen, they saw no results because their God wasn't the true God. and he wasn't real, and he couldn't do anything. So then it's Elijah's turn, and Elijah decides, let's make things a little more interesting. There's a lot of people watching, and I know what my God can do. So he tells the people to go and gather water. Now, remember, this is a time of drought. Do you think that people are going to want to waste water? Absolutely not. But he tells them to go and get water and to put it on the altar 3 times until everything is just soaked in water. I don't know about you guys, or if you've tried to light fires before, but lighting things that are completely wet doesn't really go over well. But he believed that God could do anything, and he'd already seen that God could do anything. I mean, he raised a boy from the dead through God's power already. Elijah calls on God, and when he does this, he says, "O Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back." It says, "Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt offering, and the wood and the stones and the dust, and looked up the water even that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their face and said, 'The Lord, he is God, the Lord, he is God.' And Elijah said to them, 'Seize the prophets of Baal, let no one of them escape.' And they seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered them there." Elijah called out and he said, "Let it be known that I am your servant. You are my God. You are the one true God." And he says, "Show them, God. Show them that you're the true God, that I am your servant, that this whole time was for something greater than me. Show them that this drought was to show them who you are, God." And you know what? God listened. And God sent fire on the altar, and it consumed everything. There was nothing left, and it's dried up every bit of water that was there. And then after that, it says that Elijah went to another brook called Kishon. Remember the brook that he was at the first time? It was called the Brook of Cherith, and it was a place that meant separated. Well, Kishon means a place of the snare. Now, a snare is a trap. Usually when you set a trap, it takes a long time for it to work sometimes. You have to sit there and wait and wait and wait for whoever it is that you're trying to catch or whatever it is that you're trying to catch to come in and be drawn in. This is what this whole time of drought was about, was waiting for God to set up the perfect moment for the prophets of Baal to be destroyed. And there, at the place called Kishon, which is the place of the snare, Elijah destroyed the prophets of Baal through God. This was a huge victory for the people of God and for Elijah, showing that God was who he said he was the whole time, that he was the one that has the true power and not Baal. And it freed the people from worshiping Baal because they finally saw with their own 2 eyes who the one true God was. It doesn't stop there, because remember, there was a drought. There was no rain at all. It says, after that, Elijah said to Ahab, "Go up and eat and drink, for there is a sound of rushing rain." So Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Mount Carmel. And he bowed himself down on the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, "Go up now, look toward the sea." And he went up and looked and said, "There is nothing." And he said, "Go again," 7 times. So the servant of Elijah went 7 times to check. At the 6th time, or maybe even at the 4th time, I might have been like, "Elijah, you're crazy. There's nothing here. I'm getting tired." But he went 7 times. And the 7th time, he said, "Behold, a little cloud like a man's hands is rising up from the sea." He said, "Go up and say to Ahab, prepare your chariot and go down, lest the rain stop you." And in a little while the heavens grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rose and went to Jezreel, and the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he gathered up his garment and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Here it was, not only did God send fire, but God provided rain, and showed once again that he was a God that was true to his promises and able to deliver. Whenever we look at this whole story in entirety from last week's to this week, I just think of the faith that Elijah had to wait on the Lord for what God said was going to happen. Whenever he was at the brook Cherith and he was there by himself in the wilderness and just being fed by birds. I don't know, for me, that might be a place where I would be tempted to be like, I'm lonely, and think that God wasn't speaking or that God was being too slow. But Elijah, he trusted in God and his timing, and he rested. Even in times when God wasn't showing that he was doing anything, Elijah believed that he would do something. And so the whole time of the drought, Elijah kept faith. And that's something that you and I can do, is we can keep trusting God and keep having faith in God, even whenever it seems like things are quiet or it seems like things aren't happening as fast as we think that they should. Because in the end, when all is said and done, our God is going to be the God that is victorious. He's going to be the one true God, and He's going to be the one to send the fire on the earth. So this week, just keep being the awesome, awesome people that I know y'all are. Keep trusting in who God says He is. Know that I love you, but most importantly, God loves you. I'm praying that we get to see y'all again really soon in person, and that's it. Bye, guys.